Hello everyone, back tuning into today's first video. So we're going to have a look at weather in the United States for today's first video. It's Wednesday, which means it's time to do our 10 to 14 day update for America. So I shall get on that for you very shortly. Just say that coming up later on today, we're going to be live streaming from 6 o'clock. We're going to have our 6 o'clock live stream, and we're going to be live streaming the 10 to 14 day update for the UK and for Northern Europe as well. I shall see that. I think it'll be going to be a pretty big stream. There's a lot of interest around at the moment, so it'll be interesting to see how big that stream gets. But yeah, that will be coming up for you from 6 o'clock this evening. There's a bit of a model wobble going on with next week's cold weather, but more on that in the live stream tonight. Right then, so these USA forecasts are YouTube exclusives. So if you aren't yet subscribed to the channel, then you will have to subscribe to be notified when we are releasing these every Wednesday. So we release USA forecasts every Wednesday. Click the bell notification icon, and YouTube will let you know when we release these videos every week on a Wednesday. And also European Outlook, of course, that we do on a Thursday. Right, so we're going to, I can't show you the 500 millibar height anomaly from Penn State University. Again, that's not been updated since the new year for some reason. So something's happened there. But we're going to begin this with the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. Looking at Frankfurt in Kentucky today. So the red line is a 30-year upper air temperature average for Frankfurt. We're starting off above average at the moment. We're going to have a cold snap coming up over the towards the end of the week and into weekend and lasting through to the beginning of next week. And then beyond that, it looks as though we've got a lot of scatter through the last week to 10 days of January. So these ensemble members up here are mild. They're mild ensemble members. These ensemble members down here are cold. There could be a mix of both going on. So we may have a couple of really cold plunges and then reprieves from the south in between. So yeah, very, very uncertain for the last week of January with a huge amount of scatter. Some of the ensemble members are going up to like above plus 10 at 850 HPA. Some of these coldest ensemble members are going down to like minus 20 at 850 HPA. So that is a huge amount of scatter. And some of those ensemble members might be doing both. Some of them might be lifting the temperature up to a very mild category and then very quickly plunging down to very cold category. So that last week of January is a little bit of a puzzle. Precipitation-wise, going to be a lot of dry weather over the next few days. It does get more unsettled as the temperature drops at the end of the weekend into the weekend. So that could be associated with some snow, as it will be, those cold temperatures will be brought by a trough of low pressure. Through the last week to 10 days of January, more definitively unsettled. And again, with the milder ensemble members, some of those precipitation spikes of rain. With the colder ensemble members, some of those precipitation spikes will be definitely snow. Might even be some freezing rain going on within that as well. So that last week of January is a real puzzle. Temperature anomalies on the 13th to 21st of January, generally mild on average in most parts of the states, particularly so for these northern, midwestern and northeastern states. It's a little bit cooler down in the south and the southeastern states. So many western parts of America are looking milder than average as well. Precipitation anomalies from the 13th to 21st of January. Drier in more parts of the states than where it's wetter. The northern states are wettest. Many of these western and southwestern states looking very dry. Much of the east looking pretty dry. And even many parts of the Midwest looking quite dry as well, to be honest. So a relatively dry scene through most parts of America, but there are exceptions, particularly these northern states, and again down towards the Gulf Coast, for example, eastern parts of Texas look a little bit wetter than average. So this is how the synoptic setup is for today across America. It's generally mild across much of the state, so there's a little bit of cold air into the far northeastern corner and also in the extreme northwestern corner, but most parts of the states are milder than average. Now, as we go through the second half of the week, you can have low pressure digging in from the north. That's going to start to bring colder air down from Canada. It's not a notably cold spell, really, for the time of year, but as this low pressure plunges through the Midwest, it will pull in colder air with it from the north. So we see that the upper air temperatures do drop. We push -5 Celsius iceberg down into the southern states. As I say, for the time of year, it's not notably cold, but it is enough to bring snow, particularly through these midwestern states. It's relatively mild up the eastern side. It is mild out in the west and in the northwest too. Trough of low pressure then sort of sits around the Midwest, around the Great Lakes, as we go through to the end of the week and into weekend. So it's getting a bit colder as well. The air begins to get really quite cold then from the north. So around this low pressure, there's an increasing risk of disruptive snow, I think, through the Midwest. Although, having said that, many of these eastern states with a southerly wind are still looking pretty mild, and it continues to be mild or even quite hot, actually, down in the southwestern part of America. Into the weekend, or into Sunday, low pressure continues to sit around the northeastern states and Midwest, keeping it pretty cold there with chance of further snow with those cold upper air temperatures. And then into the early part of next week, we gradually see those cold temperatures beginning to recede back northwards again. As the air starts to push up from the south. So we gradually get rid of most of that cold air, although some cold with this low pressure around Newfoundland is left in the extreme northeastern part of America. There is another low pressure developing to the north of the states into central Canada, but we'll have some very cold air with it as well. But generally through the early part of next week and into the middle of next week, I think the cold air does recede for a while. Although by Thursday, a very cold plunge is beginning to move out of Canada back into those far northern states. That's Thursday. Next week, of course. And then those cold winds begin to descend southwards, or the cold air and the cold winds begin to descend southwards into many of these northern states. So gradually, as we go towards the last week of January, this GFS run wants to turn things bitterly cold across many northern parts of America, with some brutal cold beginning to set in from Canada. This area of low pressure is the trigger for that. So on the southern side of on the east side of the low, bring up a southerly wind, so it actually turns very mild through much of these eastern, southeastern parts of America with heavy rain. But of course, on the northern and western side of this low pressure, that's where the very cold air is. And so there will be heavy snow and blizzards on the western and northern side of that area of low pressure. Looks like it's got the makings of a classic sort of winter storm that, but we are a long way out. We're up to like the 25th of January now, so they sit with the upper air temperatures, many eastern, southeast and southern parts of states looking mild, but on the northern and western side of that low pressure, extreme cold pushing out of Canada into like the Rocky Mountain sort of area, and going in towards the northwest as well, quite unusually so for the extreme northwest, getting very, very cold with that too. We move on in towards the end of January. It looks like we'll gradually push those very, very cold upper air temperatures eastwards. So these really cold temperatures gradually flooding across most parts of Midwest and also into the east as well. By the end of January, that could see winter really start to bite as we go through to the end of January for many northern and eastern parts of America. Although by the very end of a GFS run, which gets us 29th of January today, we are seeing those very cold upper air temperatures begin to recede away northwards again. So it doesn't last all that long, but it could get very cold for a time during the final week of January. So how the euro is looking, this is how the ECM is looking. So again, situation at the moment and into tomorrow is generally mild across most parts of the state. So this low pressure will be trying to pull some colder air in from the north. That plunging southwards through the Midwest as we go through to Friday, bringing cold air with it, increasing risk of snow through the Midwest. Relatively mild up the east coast, the west, northwest looking mild generally as well. There's the upper air temperatures showing this drop in temperature through the Midwest. It is not a particularly extreme cold spell at all for the time of year, but it will be cold enough to bring snow through those midwestern parts of America. Then that low pressure pushes eastwards into the weekend, takes the coldest air through the Midwest, probably over towards the east coast. Into the early part of next week, we probably see milder air beginning to draw up from the south. Those very cold upper air temperatures beginning to recede away north, but still plenty left, actually, plenty of cold left through the Midwest and into the east and the northeast as well for the early part of next week. And then we get to the second half of next week, and we begin to do it all over again. We begin to drop some very cold air down the eastern side from the Midwest, down the east side, basically upper air temperatures by day 10, which is 23rd of January, looking bitterly cold for much of northern and eastern America, and also into Midwest as well, with some very cold air being drawn out of Canada. So gradually over time, by the time we get to the final week of January, we could be seeing something very, very cold moving into Midwest and into the east. Always a little bit milder though out in the west. This is how the CFS is looking for week 1 in terms of 500 millibar height. Normally, so this takes from the 12th to the 18th of January. We have above average heights to our north and northwest, below average heights to our southeast. So like relatively mild, really, for any northern parts of America for time of year. This trough low pressure will have some colder air associated with it. We go through to week 2, which is the 19th, 25th of January. Again, low pressure coming through the north, higher pressure up towards Canada. So that could be bringing some colder air into those northern parts of America as the jet stream begins to shift southwards a little bit. Week 3 is the 26th of January to the 1st of February, low pressure away to the northwest. So coldest air possibly digging towards the northwest there in week 3. And then week 4, just generally quite mild with that one. This is the 2nd to the 8th of February, with high pressure sitting through many of the central, eastern, and midwestern states, which will be drawing up winds from the south. Coldest weather is probably in the northwest with that trough of low pressure. Temperature anomalies for week 1, very mild across the northern parts of America, northern and northeast parts of states, colder across these southern states. Generally colder through week 2. This is the 19th to 25th of January. It looks like the jets is on northwest southeast alignment doing something like that. So rather colder through the Midwest, but mild in the far northeast and in the west and in the southwest. Week 3 looks like this. So milder through the southern states and in the extreme northeast, colder in the northwest and down the east coast. And then week 4, which is 2nd to the 8th of February, looking very mild then through most parts of America. Precipitation anomaly finally. Driving average is east and southeastern states, wet in the northwest and in the extreme northern states. Week 2, precipitation anomaly is the 19th, 25th of January. Still pretty dry for most parts of America, particularly so out in the west and in the southwest. Week 3, wetter in the west and in the northwest then. Some of this could be snow, of course, in the northwest. Rain for California away from like mountainous areas. Driest over in the east and in the southeast. And then week 4, which is 2nd to 8th of February. Weak signals, wettest in the northwest, a little bit wet in the east. Dry perhaps through the central parts of America. So it's a mixed bag, isn't it? It looks like it's going to... We're starting off mild at the moment, of course. It looks like it's going to be getting colder as we go through into the end of the week, into weekend, and beginning of next week, through much of the Midwest and into the northeast. That might eventually progress through to the east. It looks like it'll recede away for a time, but as we move into the last week of January, we may see a much colder plunge coming in from Canada, and so many sort of northern, central, midwestern, and eastern states could find themselves plunged into the freezer as we go into the last week of January, for a while anyway, before maybe it recedes away as we move into February. Right, we'll do it all over again next week. If you enjoyed this USA forecast, then please give us a like on the video. Let us know in the comments what you think, and make sure you're subscribed to our channel to be notified when we release these USA forecasts every Wednesday. We're going to be back at 6 o'clock with our live stream. We'll be live streaming the 10 to 14 day update for the UK and the rest of Europe as well. We're looking at prospects of snow in the coming hours and next week. So come back for that then. And I shall see you at 6. But for the USA forecast, that's all for now. And thanks for watching.